Hello and welcome to today's 1080 Live with Michael Moran and Amy Centers. We're going to be looking at what is HR's Nirvana. So I'm going to let Michael and Amy introduce themselves. So Michael, over to you.
So, thank you, Hannah, and welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. I am the Chief Executive of 1080. If I had a specialist subject, I think I would say that's around career coaching and employee engagement. I've spent something like 20 years in the HR profession, both public and private sector, working in financial services, as well as the health service. And more latterly, I've been running businesses that specialize in career coaching. And I suppose our tagline is, we help people maximize their potential, and we help organizations exploit that potential. Amy, tell us about yourself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Amy Centers. I am the Vice President of Client Transformation Solutions for an organization based in Auckland, New Zealand called Fuel 50. And what we do is we partner with businesses around the world with our AI-powered software technology to create custom, intentional career experiences for employees internally and create visibility and transparency. It's really an online talent marketplace. My background is in leadership development. I have a PhD in organizational development and leadership. I'm a professional certified coach, and yeah, excited to be here today. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Amy. So we're going to be talking about what is HR's Nirvana. So what is it that would be the most ideal HR experience? So Michael and Amy are going to guide us through that today and take us through those questions. So over to you.
So a little tongue-in-cheek, but I thought it'd be good to start off in an optimistic manner. HR's Nirvana would be, first of all, the only people who left the organization were those that you wanted to leave. And then secondly, when you had a vacancy, what would happen is you'd be able to almost reach out and touch at least 2 or 3 candidates who more than exceeded the job specification, and they would volunteer for this new job. And obviously only one could get the job, but when you were talking to the candidates who came second and third, they would say, that's perfectly okay, I understand, I'm going to sit here and wait for the next opportunity. So HR Nirvana is, and by the way, so there'd be no grievance problems or employee relations. The right people would appear in the right job at the right time. What do you think, Amy?
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't that be ideal, right? It's definitely something to be striving for, not currently the case. The other aspect that I would say to that is, that employees have a lot of clarity and focus about where they want to go and specifically how they want to get there. One of the things that, I notice in my work is we're always kind of competing with that toggle of, urgent business needs or just an influx of emails with development, right? So I would say HR Nirvana would also create space for the prioritization of developing your people, because we know when you have an open role, it only works to fill it if people are ready. So I would say that everybody in HR Nirvana would be role ready when those roles become available. And then of course you have people leaders that are well equipped and have the capability to support their people in that space.
So, I suppose the obvious question is, Amy, we both know that's not easy to achieve. So, why do you believe it's so difficult to achieve this Nirvana we've just outlined?
Well, I definitely feel like that manager capability is so critical. We do a lot of career-oriented research, at Fuel 50, and we know that if an employee does have, say, a career conversation with their manager or their people leader, and it doesn't go well from their perspective, sometimes it's easier to just go find a job elsewhere than revisit that path. They're really the conduit to their team members' experiences. So I think manager capability is so critical. But again, also, folks around the business, senior leaders, managers, really prioritizing taking time out of their day to focus on their development and resetting that balance of urgent versus important in that space. I think that's really an important component of it.
Okay, so let me just continue for a moment on the manager side, and then we can probably talk about the employee side.
Yeah.
So I personally think we're asking a lot of managers, particularly in organizations that are performance driven. I.e., I'm going to be judged by my results, and as a good manager and leader, it's the results of my team. And I think it takes an exceptional person who's prepared to put the goals of the organization before the objectives they've been set, and indeed probably the reward they're going to get. So why would I offer my best people to other people in the organization? Because that's not going to help me. And so I think when we're talking about managers creating the time for those career conversations, there's a real issue of, I don't want to lose you. The second thing is, I think even if I am the sort of person where I do believe in developing my people, and we know developing and stretching people is a key driver of engagement, the issue is, am I capable, am I equipped to help this individual? Do I know where the opportunities sit? Or do I have a good sense as to what skills and competences are required in these jobs across the organization? And I think that's really true, Amy, in organizations that employ lots of people. On the converse, if it's a small organization, there's even more driver for don't lose your best people, because otherwise you'll impact performance. What do you think about that, Amy?
Yeah, well, I think I have seen really a rise in organizations starting to measure the people leadership aspect of managing people, because I think you're right. People will do what they're measured on, but I've seen Microsoft has an 11-point manager index. There's some upward feedback movements happening in organizations. People are really trying to surface those talent magnets, people who are developing their talent and exporting it around the business. So again, as a people and culture team or an HR team, what are you prioritizing for your folks, right? So there's that aspect of it. Also, with Fuel 50 and other types of technologies, we really are putting the sort of the customized career development experience in the hands of the people, so they can see, here are some roles in the organization that I'm interested in. Here's my competency gap analysis, really highlighting those focus areas for further development. And then the manager is really in a support role. They advocate for the person, help them connect to folks in the business, but they're not having to create custom career experiences for everyone on their team. So really, I think the what's in it for me from a manager perspective is, all you have to do is, show up in a supportive space where you're advocating for your folks, but you're not having to kind of figure out what type of development is going to be applicable to everyone on your team. So in a lot of ways, it actually makes it much easier for people leaders. But I agree. I mean, it's a very sophisticated skill set, and especially for new people new in the people leading experience, it can be really challenging.
Yeah, and if we then turn to the employee experience, because I'll guarantee that anyone listening today, if you've done an engagement survey in the last 12 to 18 months, within the top 3 items, what employee wants is career development. I want to develop, I want a career. But when you actually say to people, so what does that mean? Again, I think for a lot of employees, they don't know what they want. In fact, most people come into a job or even into a career without really any vocational guidance. They drift in and they don't really know what's important to them or what motivates them. And certainly you sort of acquire the skills for the job you're doing. So I think for an employee, yes, we want careers, but actually most people need help and guidance in order to put in place a career plan. What do you think, Amy?
Well, absolutely. And I think that's where the rise of the internal marketplace is creating more transparency and visibility into opportunities, but also sort of I guess for lack of a better word, like segmented paths for development and gigs. For example, I'm really seeing a rise in the demand or the need for gig experiences for folks that let them sample, cross-functional sections, other areas of the business, so that they can get more information to inform their decision-making in terms of their career progression. Internal mentors is another, much tapped into resource that help folks kind of get clarity. Again, it's that clarity and focus, right? Because what we're committed to is people really pathing in an intentional way. We know that, the average adult spends roughly 80,000 hours of their lives at work, and who better than the person to know how they want to spend that time. So we're always looking for the intersection of what do you love to do? What are you great at? What are the organizational needs? And so I think, again, kind of it's all about prioritization, but really helping your folks get that clarity is going to help, solve for that a bit.
Okay, so let's. I mean, having recognised, I know it was tongue in cheek what Nirvana looks like, but acknowledging in the real world that's not easy to achieve. So why don't we talk a little bit about the practical steps you can take? And you mentioned transparency. So just tell me more about how you're going to get that transparency, which is going to help both managers and employees, get what they want out of the career experience.
Yeah. So again, at Feel 50, we have data to show that a lot of times, I shouldn't really say data, when our clients come to us, really what they're often saying these days, it used to kind of be predicated on engagement survey data, but really what they're needing most of the time, or what they're saying to us, is we're losing our top talent, not because there aren't internal opportunities, but because the employees don't know about them, right? And so that's where some of this technology can help give visibility. If you're mapping skills and capabilities, what we call talents, to roles, and again, you can start creating an infrastructure in which conceivably, which they can do with our software, you go and you can see any role in the organization. What is your path to get there? How many moves would it be? And what is your competency gap analysis along the way? So it really does give that rich data to the employee to help inform their decision making. Of course, always checking for alignment along the way with their manager, right? So I think that's probably the best way that you can do it at scale. Smaller companies maybe can do it, in a more offline kind of way, but obviously at scale, you're going to need some technological support.
Now, we've had some comments coming on that actually, Amy, and Michael. So this idea of, if what you're dealing with is this transparency, Laura's suggested, she's always found mentoring has been fantastic to help navigate her career. And I think, it's safe to say, whether it's within the business or out the business, it is one of those ways. But I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'm a great believer in mentoring, and in fact, I'm going to go one step further, Laura. If, for example, you've got some sort of management and leadership development program in the organization, that's a perfect vehicle for creating mentors who can have conversations with people to help them. Likewise, having mentors for helping people on board into organizations are critical. Now, again, and I'm sure Amy's going to help us here, that again, I think most people, when they come into an organization, or they buy in a mentor is a good thing to have, but how do I find the right mentor for me? Or even I'm a little hesitant. I really, can I ask that person over there? He or she looks very senior. I know they're going to be very busy. They're not going to have time to mentor me. Amy, what's your experience in setting up mentoring schemes?
Yeah, so again, technology can help you, right? Because you can have mentor profiles. At Feel 50, we have mentors and mentees assess their talents, their skills and capabilities. So everything is kind of skill-based. If people are looking to strengthen or develop in some way a new skill or competency, they can see who in the mentor pool is more advanced than them, so they can connect in that way. Also, I think organizations are recognizing that there's always the benefit of a long-term mentor relationship. However, I'm a big fan, especially in our COVID environment where we've been working in virtual spaces, of just having some little micro mentoring experiences. It's been my experience that most people are very amenable to somebody putting 10 or 15 minutes on their calendar to have like a virtual coffee chat to talk about their role or their career progression. And then that also starts expanding someone's internal network, so they get to know more people in the organization and also be known. But yeah, I mean, the social learning aspect with mentoring is significant. And in my experience, it just requires quite a bit of internal structure so that you're checking that it's working for both the mentee and the mentor. There's options, if you do need to kind of make some changes with the mentor pairings, but in general, I think it's an incredible opportunity for folks. Both, and reverse mentoring sometimes is really, really powerful.
Yeah.
So you talk about that really easily. Sorry, Michael. But one of the questions I was going to ask is, why is it so hard to achieve? So we know what it is we need, but why is it we can't achieve that?
And can I just, Amy, you might want to address, I think a lot of organizations now have invested heavily in HR technology, and I know obviously you represent Fuel 50, but people like Workday, SuccessFactors. But when I talk to clients, actually, the difficulty isn't the technology, it's getting employees to engage with that technology. And maybe it's not the most user-friendly for people. Now, I'll give you an example. The most effective HR database in the world is LinkedIn. Now, why is LinkedIn so effective? Well, because people think if I put my profile up there, recruiters will find me and I don't need to do too much about it. And of course, I'm motivated to do that. When I look at other organizations, particularly when they've got things like you've got gigs or talent, maybe employees, for whatever reason, are quite slow at coming forward and volunteering. So how can you make that technology experience user-friendly so people engage with it, Amy?
Yeah, so I'm honestly not trying to surface Fuel 50 in all my answers. I'm really not. However, where I first engaged with Fuel 50, which was our CEO, Ann Fulton, was at a conference. I was working for a company where I live in San Diego. She spoke at a conference and it blew me away because it was the first time, this is 6 years ago, that I'd really seen HR technology that wasn't like that 1980s DOS. Remember when that green clicker in the screen? And it felt like something that I was used to on Facebook or LinkedIn. And so I think that HR technology has really come a long way in creating a beautiful gamified, AI-powered custom experience. So I really think that that's kind of the key to unlocking engagement with folks, because it's interesting, it's intuitive, it's very employee-centric and user-friendly. But and part of the reason why I opened, when we started talking around that prioritization is we have inertia, right? We've got, as humans, we're sort of wired to resist change, but want to grow and develop. So we've got this toggle. And I really think it's imperative that senior leaders and direct supervisors, managers, people leaders help model creating a culture of development, and then also really support their folks in carving out the time to do it. I always equate it with like diet and exercise. I know it's very advantageous for me to work out every day, but oftentimes I get busy. Sometimes it's just responding to emails that aren't even urgent, but I will prioritize that over working out, even though working out is in my health is one of the most important things to me. So it's really creating some structure and support for folks to do it. And I've seen a lot of organizations, a financial services company that we work with has Development Tuesdays, where every Tuesday afternoon, the entire company has either a half day or a few hours to spend on development. So again, you really need to put some structure in place for folks to do it, or that inertia is just going to kick in, I think.
I think you're right. I think you're right in the sense of, I think people see it's important. I think career management goes in the too difficult to do box very often. And indeed, you can misprioritize. You can think, actually, by doing my job and not self-investing, that's more important. So I think it does come back to, you need an organization. And I'm a great fan of the guy who founded LinkedIn, who talks about, it's organization's role is to make you more employable, not to guarantee a job for life, but to make you more employable. And certainly things like development 2 days or Google time, the famously done it. That's really important. But I also think you need to make sure that you have the tools to to help you decide what's important to you, what motivates you, what it is you like doing, because that's the bedrock of making any career decisions, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
and yes, it can be done on technology, which is good, but equally it can be done with a conversation with your manager. So we're looking for managers, I think, who on a regular basis check in, have that conversation, and try to help people understand where they're trying to get to and what skills they need to develop.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A few years ago, I was working in leadership development for a different company, and we were doing a future leaders program. We were looking at 360s, and there was really just one standout that was just off the charts in terms of excellent leadership. And I met with him because he was like, kind of a postdoc engineer, spent a lot of time studying the functional technical aspects of his role. And I said, why are you such a good leader? And he said, at the beginning of this year, my manager said, the only thing I'm going to judge your performance on is how you're developing your people. So I had to step out of the work, and I had to learn how to do it through others in a really effective way. And I thought that was powerful.
Immensely. I mean, if I'm in an organization today, as I say, HR and L&D people, identifying what I call enablers, people who get vicarious liability of pleasure through helping people develop, because they are the ones who will become the champions for you. And I give you a slight story from the UK, Amy, that the reason why performance targets don't work with teachers, and we're great with having lots of measurement stats or whatever, because they're enablers. They're about helping people. They're not driven by the results. So identifying in organizations where enablers sit. Having said that, I think it's quite a rare commodity, because you get rewarded for what you achieve in organizations, not what other people achieve. And I'm a great believer, and I've seen it done very successfully. If you award bonuses to senior people based on how many people they've promoted out of the department, that's a real driver for changing behavior. Hannah, you want to come in?
And that's a very good point, Michael. So it does bring us on to, how do you achieve it then? What are the things you could put in place that would help the companies get there? And I just want to make a point that Sarah said. She thinks people are flattered to be asked to be mentors. And I think that is the case. You are, like you talked about, you've got to play into this. What is it that people get from it? So if you're a manager, is it about your bonuses paid on moving people? Is it about working to build what's important to me? But I'll pass that over to you.
So coming back to Sarah, who is a LinkedIn guru and a very active participant, and also a role model, but I do think a lot of people are quite reticent to engage with it. There's that sort of thing. What happens if I get rejected, or they won't want to do it? So certainly within an organization, I think you've got to encourage and reward people who step up to the plate to be mentors. Hence my rule that if you've got a potential leader population going through some management development or leadership program, they're very obvious candidates to be mentors for you. Amy, so look, we've talked about a number of things, haven't we? So let's identify 3 or 4 key things you can do to sort of create this sort of culture whereby you have got a high level of engagement because people are investing in their careers. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I think from an HR perspective, it kind of goes back to that creating structure for folks and really supporting that manager capability. I mean, again, to really thrive in this space is almost coming from that servant leadership modality, right? And especially if you're new to management, it's quite an evolution to get to that space of I'm serving my folks. But any type of support that you can give for managers and just raising their capability in that space, getting senior leaders engaged, because again, it gives permission for the organizational folks to spend their time doing that. And I think, again, helping employees get clarity and focus to truly own their careers in a meaningful way is also really critical. We know that employees who do have a career plan and have spoken about it to their managers are much more engaged. And again, we've got a lot of retention data, right? A lot of times People are leaving because they don't know what's available to them, and it's just not the reality that there aren't a lot of viable options.
So let me interrupt you a second. Let me just wear my CEO hat or my CFO hat, Amy, because I know you're preaching to the converted, that we know this is a good thing. But I'm a finance guy. I'm thinking, what's my return on investment? What's the business case for what you're preparing? Hit me with some of that data.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Can you afford not to? You know, there's a bit of a talent war, especially in the tech space. You do want to keep your right folks. And so finding out specifically, you know, one of the things that I think happens a lot too is because we're all really busy, you know, a lot of times the people team is making decisions for the organization, but are they getting data from the folks on the ground, right? Some focus groups, really making sure you're aligned with specifically what they're looking for. But retaining your top talent, again, especially in the tech sector, is so critical these days. And having them be engaged in their work and in thriving and committed to the organization, you just can't put a price on that. So I agree, you know, we're always driving toward the bottom line. It's super important, but there's got to be some balance there to really achieve the HR Nirvana that we're speaking about today. It takes time and effort, and it takes a lot of intention, and again, a lot of commitment to elevating that aspect of the business.
I'm going to give a plug for the Engage for Success organization. We've been very fortunate in the UK that they have spent a considerable amount of time and energy correlating levels of employee engagement to profitability, customer satisfaction, and shareholder value. So I'm absolutely clear that if you move the dial and engagement up, and what we know, what do employees want? They want a manager who cares for them, listens to them, and develops and stretches them, i.e. all the things at the heart of this career management we're talking about. If you do that, you will truly drive the profitability of your business. Or for not-for-profit, if you're there to serve your customers, absolutely, that dial will move. But I still think we've got a long way to go to convince people that that's the level of investment, because it is an investment, isn't it? You know, sort of, I saw, and again, a UK thing, the BBC published their results a couple of weeks ago, and they were very proudly saying they were spending £543 per person on an employee. Now, I don't know what the average salary is, but let's have a guess that that's, say, anything between 30 and 100,000. That's a very low percentage of investment, given it's an organization that's all about the people and that intellectual capacity they have. So how do we persuade managers to make that investment, Amy?
Well, one of the things that you described, I think, is evolving a little bit, that idea of managers really developing their people. So we've spoke about the importance of that, but I do think that technology has made incredible strides in making that actually much simpler for managers. You know, we've got all kinds of resources, coaching scenarios, discussion guides, predicated on the GROW model that really help managers. So now it's to the point where technology is giving such support to the employee that really the manager's role is just don't be a blocker, right? Like you're not having, as I said, you're not having to create customized development plans. You're not having to figure out development goals for your folks. Here's how you can just not get in your own way and help them really, you know, leverage all of the information, resources, guides, support to chart their course in a way that's going to work for them. So I feel like technology is actually easing that a little bit. It's also, there's a lot in the internal marketplace that can support people, you know, people and culture folks as well. So it's still a challenge, but I think it's getting alleviated a little bit.
Okay, I get that, but I still think, and it's, from a manager's perspective, and you're right, I think your message is don't block, just enable. But I also think you can be a very powerful role model. So,
absolutely.
So managers who have this message around the importance of self-investment, it's not just sending your people away or developing your people. It's about you practicing what you preach. So I still think, you know, good leaders practice what they preach, and therefore spend a significant amount of time in self-development as well as developing others. So 1628, Hannah, we're coming to the end. So what final words of wisdom do we want to give to the audience today before we take some questions, if there are any? Amy, what's your key message?
I think my key message is going to be around, again, helping employees get that clarity and focus. One of my favorite quotes is, I think it's Stephen Covey, you don't want to climb the ladder of success just to get to the top and realize it's leaning against the wrong wall, right? We really want people to get clear on what naturally engages them, what are they naturally good at, and then again, how can we align that to roles and opportunities within the organization?
And mine would be great managers, great leaders spend time developing their people, less on focusing on what the job is to be done, but by enabling people to achieve the results on their behalf. By the way, that's a great model because in theory, you're passing the role to other people and you get rewarded for what they do, not what you do.
Yeah.
Hannah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much both for your thoughts today. They've been well received. Here we go. Dr. Amy Centers is brilliant. So
well,
thank you very much. And
you'll send Christine that £10, will you, Amy?
I got a Venmo, Christine. Yeah.
So thank you for joining today. And then our next one is with Sarah Burgess on Wednesday at 12 offering career insights. So thank you very much and goodbye.
Thanks.
Enjoy.